What would you do if the people who were supposed to love you most thought you were gone and they were happy about it? My name is Claire, and 6 months ago, I fell off a cliff during a hike with my husband. I was supposed to die that day, but I didn't. And when I finally came back to the world I once knew, I discovered something that broke my heart in ways I never imagined. My husband and my own sister were planning their wedding, using my life insurance money. This is my story. The setup. Before that hike, my life looked perfect from the outside. I was married to Daniel for 6 years. We had a nice home, stable jobs, and a tight family. My younger sister, Megan, was always close to us. She'd come over for dinners, holidays, even vacations. I trusted her completely. I trusted Daniel completely. That weekend, Daniel suggested a hiking trip to celebrate our anniversary. A trail we'd done before, nothing dangerous, just a peaceful getaway. I remember laughing on the way up, taking pictures, feeling grateful for the life I had built. Then everything went black. The accident. I don't remember the fall. I only remember waking up to pain, then nothing. The next clear memory I have is opening my eyes in an unfamiliar room. Wooden walls, a crackling fireplace, and an old man's face leaning over me. His name was Walter, a retired forest ranger who lived alone in a cabin deep in the woods. He told me he found me at the bottom of a ravine, barely breathing, days after the fall. There had been no search party near that area. The trail I went down wasn't the one I was supposed to be on. I had severe memory gaps, a broken leg, and no phone, no ID, nothing. Walter had no way to contact anyone, and the nearest town was hours away, by foot through rough terrain. He nursed me back to health slowly, patiently, as the weeks turned into months. And somewhere in that silence, in that isolation, a question started forming in my mind that I couldn't shake. Why was I on a trail I never agreed to hike? Piecing it together. As my memory slowly returned, I remembered Daniel suggesting we take a shortcut that day. A path he said he'd researched, one we'd never used before. I remembered him walking slightly behind me near the ravine's edge. I remembered the strange, distant look on his face right before I lost my footing. At first, I refused to believe what my mind was suggesting. Daniel loved me. We had built a life together. Surely this was just a tragic accident. But Walter, in his quiet wisdom, asked me one simple question. If it was an accident, why hasn't anyone come looking for you? That question stayed with me every single night. The journey back. Once my leg healed enough, Walter helped me reach the nearest town. We went to the local authorities, who were stunned. I had been declared dead months earlier. A memorial had been held. My case was closed. I learned that no real search had ever been organized beyond a day or two. Daniel had told everyone I had wandered off the trail alone, that he'd searched for hours before giving up in the dark. The story matched almost too perfectly with what I remembered, except for the part about the unfamiliar shortcut he had chosen. With the help of the local police, I quietly confirmed my identity through medical records. But I made a decision that would change everything. I would not announce I was alive. Not yet. I needed to know the truth first. I asked a close friend, someone I trusted completely, to quietly check in on my family without revealing I was alive. What she found left me frozen. Daniel and Megan were together, not comforting each other through grief. Together as a couple. And worse, they were planning a wedding. My sister was wearing the engagement ring my husband had once given me as an heirloom, redesigned to look new. The wedding was being funded by the life insurance payout from my supposed death. $200,000 meant to support a grieving widow, now financing flowers, a venue, and a future I had been erased from. I sat in that cabin with the only proof I had, and I felt something inside me shift from heartbreak into something colder. Something focused. The realization. Walter once told me, grief makes people foolish, but guilt makes people careless. Daniel and Megan had not been careful. They had been arrogant, confident I would never return to expose them. I started connecting the timeline. The shortcut Daniel suggested. The insurance policy he had increased just 4 months before the hike. The way Megan had been suspiciously present in our lives during the last year, growing closer to Daniel in ways I had brushed off as innocent. This wasn't an accident. This was a plan. And I had survived it by sheer chance, a current that swept me toward a ledge instead of the rocks below, and an old man who happened to still patrol that part of the forest out of habit. I was alive because of luck. They had been counting on something else entirely. The plan. I decided I wouldn't storm into their lives with anger. I wanted the truth to surface in front of everyone who mattered, family, friends, and especially the people who had attended my funeral believing every word Daniel said. I worked with the detective handling my case, providing my testimony and the timeline of events. The increased insurance policy was flagged. Bank records showed transfers from the insurance payout directly funding wedding expenses before the policy had even been fully settled, which was, in itself, fraud. The wedding date was set. I made sure that I would be there, not invited, but undeniable proof, walking through the doors at the exact moment the truth needed to be seen. The wedding. The day came. Flowers, white chairs, soft music. Daniel stood at the altar, smiling like a man who had buried his guilt successfully. Megan walked down the aisle in a white dress, glowing under the praise of relatives who had once cried at my funeral. Then the doors opened. I stood there in the entrance, very much alive, watching as the music stopped and the gasps spread through the room like wildfire. Megan's bouquet slipped from her hands. Daniel's face went pale, then blank, as if his mind refused to process what his eyes were seeing. "Hello, Daniel," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "You didn't actually think I was gone, did you?" The confrontation. The detective I had been working with entered behind me, along with 2 officers. The guests, frozen in shock, watched as Daniel's carefully built story collapsed in front of them. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need dramatics. I simply laid out the truth, the increased insurance policy, the unfamiliar trail, the secret relationship that had clearly begun long before my death, and the fraudulent use of money meant to support a grieving widow. Megan tried to explain, tears streaming down her face, claiming she never knew the full truth about the hike. But the financial records told a different story. She had access to the same bank account, had approved several of the early wedding payments funded directly from the insurance settlement before it had even cleared probate. Both of them were taken in for questioning that same day, their wedding guests left standing in stunned silence among untouched wedding cake and wilting flowers. The aftermath. Investigations confirmed what I already knew in my heart. Daniel had planned the hike deliberately, hoping the fall would be fatal and untraceable. He faced serious charges for attempted destruction of life and insurance fraud. Megan, though she claimed ignorance about the hike itself, was charged for her role in the fraudulent use of funds. The family that once surrounded me with warmth and celebration looked at me differently now, some with shame for believing the lies so easily, others with relief that the truth had finally surfaced before more damage was done. I rebuilt my life slowly. The insurance company recovered the misused funds. The home Daniel and I once shared was sold, and I used part of the proceeds to start fresh somewhere new, away from the shadows of betrayal. The lesson. Looking back, I sometimes think about how close I came to losing everything, not just my life but the truth itself. If Walter hadn't found me, if I hadn't survived that fall, Daniel and Megan would have walked into their future without consequence, built on a foundation of lies and a sister's blood. What I learned through all of this is simple. The people closest to us can sometimes hide the deepest betrayals, and the truth, no matter how long it stays buried, has a way of finding the light. If someone tries to bury you literally or figuratively, rise anyway. Speak your truth, even when the whole room is against you. Justice may take time, but it rarely forgets. This is my story. I lived it, I survived it, and I made sure it was never silenced.